Let me ask you the question point blank. Who the hell is running the country right now? Because it's clearly not the elected officials that we see on camera. So what the hell's going on? If 107 could have his cake and eat it too, who would be the president in 2028? Let's talk a little bit about Trump. What are some of the strategic moves being positioned right now? Steve Bannon is definitely hinting that there's a clear pathway for Donald Trump to take a third term. Where are you on that? This area here is the area that Donald Trump is proposing what's called the Golden Dome. I'm sure you know about it. Do you have anything to do with the Golden Dome, Juan? But why do you think this area is so important that they need to put a Golden Dome? Is the government right now shut down? Is this a real shutdown, or is this staged to basically do a controlled demolition and a restructure of power? The Mel Carmine Show begins in just 1 minute. Support the movement. Visit QFS776.com for exclusive one-of-a-kind merch that makes a statement. Protect your wealth. Cash is trash. Go to carminesgold.com and secure real assets, silver and gold delivered anywhere in the U.S. Text Mel on 786-704-8817. Looking to acquire XRP, minimum $10,000, no limit even up to $100 million. Again, text Mel on 786-704-8817 with full details. Allow up to 24 hours for a response. Text the same number to establish your religious and irrevocable trust. Protect everything you've built. And if you're in Cape Canaveral, visit stayingalive.com and recharge your body at the cellular level. The show starts now with your host, Mel Carmine.
Earlier, you shared a video on your Truth Social page about med beds. Though the post has since been deleted, should the public interpret that post as a sign we might soon see med beds introduced in hospitals, or was it more of a foreshadowing of what's to come?
Yes, it's true the med beds are coming. I wasn't joking, folks. I was simply testing to see who's paying attention, and a lot of you are very smart people. But listen, while we wait to release this truly incredible technology, there is a powerful option already here in Cape Canaveral. Go see Mel and Amber, fantastic people, really the best at Staying Alive Wellness Center, stayingalive.com. The body can repair and restore itself from disease, and let me tell you, the energy in that room is absolutely tremendous. And the testimonials, even more tremendous. Go check it out.
We got 107 with us, guys, and Juan sends me videos at all hours of the morning. He sent me this one the other day. He said, hey, let's start the show with this one that I'm about to show. And tell us about what's going on here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Former President Barack Obama.
Right.
It's fun to say it that way, former. He keeps going back over to England and doing his little meetings. He's been there 3 times in the last month and a half. And so when you understand that the whole fight against Trump has really been orchestrated through England. Remember, the dossier came from the City of London, the city within the city. Mm-hmm. It was an MI6, supposedly former retired MI6 agent that put together this dossier saying that Trump was, peeing on the bed with a bunch of hookers and all sorts of bullshit. And so with that in mind, and the Brits have been all the way along of, it's like we're fighting the war for independence all over again with all sorts of schemes and rackets, including into the banking and money supply, by the way.
Right. And
so remember that Obama, here's a little nugget for you that everybody has to kind of think about. Barack Obama wasn't born on the day they say he was born, August 4th. People that saw the alleged mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, in June of 1960 at University of Washington. These are people that knew her from high school, where she went to high school at Mercer Island, Washington. And her little Unitarian church that she went to over in Bellevue. Locals called it the Red Church because it was so Marxist communist in its mentality, of not very truly Christian as we would know it. Um, saw her at the University of Washington signing up for fall classes in June. She was wearing uh, swim clothes with a sheer top over it, and was apparently supposedly going to go canoeing down at an area called the Arboretum, which is near the University of Washington. They have they're right next to a big lake, Lake Washington, and they have canoeing, scull teams that rowing teams like that. But there's an area you can go in, you can rent canoes and go in and just paddle around. It's kind of fun, like a little moats in there or something. And so she was apparently going down to do that. We don't know if she was with somebody or whatever was the plan, but that was where she was supposedly headed. And then when they saw her, now you'd have to picture, supposedly August 4th, a month and a half later, she had a baby. So that would have made her somewhere in her 8th month of pregnancy. Imagine, high 7, 8th month, whatever. Imagine that she's wearing a swimsuit with the sheer top. It's the 60s, bikinis are coming in. And then, she has this baby. She shows up for fall classes. And in late September, early October, the same and other women who helped babysit for her. And of course, this is a unique situation because it's a colored baby and he's white. Remember, this is the early 60s. Oh my gosh, just a second here. Let me send this call to outer space. Apologize, I had somebody calling in there.
No worries.
But she's got a colored baby. It's not today. It's, in an era when that was quite a shocker, even in the West Coast. Then, so these people are babysitting, say the baby's wanting to roll over and crawl, things that a baby doesn't do till it's like 6 months old, type of thing. And they're just shocked that she's trying to pass this con off. First of all, that she was pregnant, and second of all, that it's her baby, and nobody knows the father, the boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. So this birth date that's thrown around to us of August 4th is totally fictitious. Reports are out there, and I think they're accurate, that he was born at the Peace Arch Hospital in Vancouver, BC, just over the border from Washington State, where Seattle is, into the Vancouver, BC area, British Columbia. And that the mother was a Indonesian girl, and the father was a white American. And so this was within the intelligence community. And so handing off the baby to Stanley Ann Dunham to raise the baby and provide her cover for work that she was doing into, going to do into Indonesia, kind of worked as a cover. But all of that to the side, and by the way, when she worked in Indonesia, you have to think of what a hotspot Indonesia was at the time. Southeast Asia was already in conflict with the French, there in Indochina and the region. Indonesia, within just a couple of years, would have a mass purge of a huge percentage of its population, depending on whose accounts you go by, somewhere between 1 and 5 million people killed in this purge, in this fight between Sukarno and Suharto. And Obama's mama, Stanley Ann Dunham, her name, or her work there, she was working for USAID, which has been in the press here recently, in the church committee hearings in the mid 70s, looking at all the atrocities excuse me, all the atrocities of the CIA. The head of the CIA in the mid-'70s during the Church Committee hearing said that all USAID employees in South America were actually CIA employees. By extension, that appears to have been the place anywhere in the world. But his specific testimony in the open was concerning the South American ones. And so Barack Hussein Obama's mom almost certainly was working for CIA and the intelligence community in Indonesia, and had cover this colored baby as though it was her own. She later had other children by a soldier in the Indonesian army that married her, but sent Brock back home to be raised by the grandparents. And by the way, both the grandparents, Dad was working undercover for the CIA. I mean, for FBI, excuse me. And he was the person that was, amongst other things, staying in close contact with Frank Marshall Davis, an outspoken communist living in Hawaii. And the dad was running supposedly a little furniture shop and repair and sales and all that sort of thing. And his real work was with the FBI. Mom, Stanley Ann Dunham's mom, Barack Hussein Obama's grandmother, Toots, she worked for a bank in Hawaii. And as it turns out, in the 80s, when the Marcoses went into exile, she became the personal banker. She'd already been the personal banker for some time for the Marcoses when they got to take $10 billion out of the Philippines and went into exile and lived in Hawaii. And Barack Obama's grandmother became the banker for them, or was the banker, and continued banking while they lived in Hawaii. Clearly working for the CIA. She'd been working for the CIA all along. Stanley Ann Dunham, while she was from the Seattle area, Mercer Island, which is kind of a community down an island just off, over a bridge from Seattle, and into the Bellevue area where they went to church. Stanley Ann Dunham went into the family business, it appears. When they're in Hawaii and she's arguably late 15, early 16, Frank Marshall Davis, who is this commie that Dad is tracking on the payroll of the FBI, Frank Marshall Davis does the same thing as Hugh Hefner and starts a porn magazine, supposedly with money from friends and relatives and all that sort of thing. Same story as Hefner. Actually got it from the intelligence community because he's trying to create honeypots for our people. And Hawaii is an interesting place because CIA and FBI, they work together. They bring students in from all over the world. You're on an island. Where are you going to go? That somebody doesn't know what's going on. Who are you going to mingle with? It's a very limited community. It was much smaller in those days. So they bring them to the island. They can monitor, make contact, put in contacts to that group, who then go back out into the world, back to their countries of origin, and move into political, financial, opportunistic places, and we can kind of help them along with their friends and buddies, the ones that seem to have it. And it's a nice way to do business.
It's sort of like the Epstein Island business model, right?
It's not a bad way to say it, and not inaccurate. Well, so Stanley Ann Dunham, she actually does a shoot, sex and masochism, porn shoot with Frank Marshall Davis for his magazine. And we actually have the pictures out there. She's with her high boots, up to the thighs, and with her whips and stuff like that for this little porn magazine that Frank Marshall Davis is publishing. Think about it. She's somewhere late 15, early 16. Her dad is monitoring Frank Marshall Davis, and he brings the daughter into the family business as a young teenager to help, work in the craft. And then she goes on with her schooling and is part of the roping in people as they come into the country at the school, and she's a bit loose. That goes back to her Unitarian church theology teaching, and then goes to Indonesia. By the way, later in life, she dies just before Brock becomes a senator there in Illinois of ovarian cancer. But interesting little tidbit. She's not available to be interviewed or do anything, but she belonged to an organization called Subud, supposedly another religious organization that has offices in Indonesia, Hawaii, where she supposedly had the first contact, but possibly Seattle because they have an office in Bellevue where their accounting is all done. They have a location down in Southern California near Topanga Canyon, where all the bands came from that had intelligence agency contacts to the parents, dads that were famous in the 60s. And then they have a location in Chicago, and they have a location just a few miles down the road from CIA headquarters in Virginia. That's Cebu. That's all their locations in the world. The president of Indonesia, during a big heated political battle, comes out publicly during the presidential campaign and says that Subud, this religious organization, is a CIA front, this church group that Barack Obama's mother is a member of, where we have pictures of Obama with, down there by the guitar people and all that, that it's a CIA front. And it's trying to overthrow his government there in Indonesia. Oh, well, so another contact into the CIA stuff. She supposedly dies of ovarian cancer. Go look what happened. Remember when the birth certificate was such a big thing? The governor that's campaigning to become governor in this time period, one of his campaign things, he's going to find the birth certificate that they can't find over there at while Barack is president. He's going to find it and clear this whole mess up. So he comes in, he gets to be president or a governor. He has a news conference, fires the existing head of the Hawaii Department of Public Health, and puts in a woman. The guy that's in there, supposedly he's got problems with Social Security billing. He resigns. Didn't know he was resigning. Even in the news conference, asked him, "Why are we having this news conference? Why are you resigning?" He says, "I don't know. I don't know why I'm resigning." He didn't have any clue. Was called an hour or two before he got there. And so this woman is put in as the head of Hawaii Department of Public Health. Her name is Loretta Fuddy. Loretta Fuddy had used to live over in Bellevue, Washington, and she was the treasurer of the Subud religious organization. So she was the treasurer. And did she know Barack Obama's mom? Barack Obama's mom and Loretta Fuddy were part of an organization that only had 3,000 members. They were members of it for, 3 decades. And you'd think that they'd have some communication, knew each other, whatever. It's not that big of an organization. There's only 6 offices on the planet. But amazingly, during all of that time, even though they were in the same city, neighborhood multiple times, when she was going to school over at the University of Washington, Loretta Fuddy is part of this organization. When she's in Indonesia, this treasurer is part of the organization. They never crossed paths. But take a look at a picture of Loretta Fuddy and Stanley Ann Dunham. Oh my gosh, it's Supergirl. Superwoman. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so there's all sorts of nefarious goings on over there, okay? That'll come up down the road. With that in mind, one of the things in the intelligence community, when they're passing around some of these kids like this, they'll assign them birth dates. Barack Obama was clearly not born on the day that they said he was born, August 4th, if it was Stanley Ann Dunham's child, because it was only, she'd have been 7.5, 8 months pregnant. If that wasn't the true birth date or wasn't the true mother, the birth date could be all over the place.
Correct.
And so when was the birth date? Well, it was about 6 months earlier, and 4.5, 5 months earlier of his true birth date, before people started seeing him 6 months. She could easily just drive up to Canada. We had open border. You just wave to the border guard. Yeah, I'm U.S. citizen. You didn't even have to show your ID.
Mhm.
They just take a picture of your plate and you go right on through in those days. And so going up to Canada, pick up a baby and come back was pretty doggone easy.
Right.
And nobody was checking IDs, anything like that. And if the birth date wasn't his true birth date, why did they pick that date? Because a lot of times, to keep things straight down the road, they'd pick a prominent date that fit whichever intelligence agency was involved. And part of the thing with Obama was that the actual operation, people don't think about it right now, the Brits are all over the place in a lot of these operations. And so besides FBI and CIA, MI5 and MI6 are heavily involved. So they kind of keep track of who's got whatever thing. Some dates are chosen for operations, things like that. Barack Obama's birth date, August 4th, is also the birth date of the Queen Mother. Queen Elizabeth mother was born August 4th, 1900. And so it's a Brit connection. A lot of the spoofing that was done during the Obama administration to make people think that the Brits and Obama didn't get along was cover. Famously, Obama had a bust of Winston Churchill removed from the White House during his term. Anything that made it look like they got along or had any kind of collusion was removed. And the reality is there was collusive stuff going on all along. And by the way, who is it that wants this war in Ukraine the worst, the most? It's the Brits. They want to keep Russia out of Central Europe. So all of a sudden, here we have a picture of Obama, and he's over 3 times in the last month and a half hanging out with the Brits. Remember, he bought a residence right there in D.C. to be close to Washington, D.C. Most presidents go away and let the new president have room to function unencumbered. But he sticks around there in D.C. Who's remotely operating the remote operators of the autopen?
Yeah.
Who's remotely pulling the strings and levers on Joe Biden? Oh, his arm went up. Well, what Obama did? He put his arm down. He's got to pull on it though. He's
So
getting him to do things that suit
it seems that
what's going on. So the short version is that you've got a arguably an agent of the British imperialist operation operating in plain sight, coordinating his actions
exactly what I
to
was going to
attack
say.
Trump and attack America right there in plain sight. And he's going back and forth, working out what they're going to do fucking next.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly exactly what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. He's obviously reporting to somebody. Great Britain is behind the entire thing. Obviously, they got their hands in the cookie jar. It seems like this is the mastermind, the main mastermind behind the 2020 election debacle. Without mentioning that word, because that word is illegal on YouTube still. Even though my movie was a great movie, it still didn't get the notoriety it deserves. The link's down below, guys, dear MrPresident.net. But anyway, needless to say, so it seems that he's going in and out. He's reporting to somebody. Somebody's giving him his marching orders. Am I correct?
Well, he's coordinating his actions. He to say he's just taking orders may be a reach, but there's some kind of coordination going on. And by the way, just so people understand, let's put it in context further. George Soros, who has been funding a lot of this stuff, including the rise to power of Barack Obama and through his presidency. Soros made his money betting against the British pound and other currencies within the British Commonwealth system. So he got a black bag of money that doesn't have to be accounted to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Who really helped him? He's a British agent. He's an operative of MI6. He got that money taking down these currencies, and that gave him working capital in the 80s and 90s. By the way, during the Reagan administration, of course, we were taking down the Soviet Union. A lot of that money that backfilled the British pound came out of the U.S. system, U.S. Treasury, and there's things going on even right now dealing with that this second. And and it's trillions and trillions and trillions, and that's part of the backstory in the background what's going on. But with that in mind, um, uh, as we were supporting the pound, as we were taking down the ruble, and this fight in the money sector behind the scenes that was, bringing an end to the Cold War. Soros was getting fabulously wealthy, and what's he doing the work with? He's just another puppeted figure. He's just a figurehead. He is the visible side of a British operation, intelligence agency operation, to continue to attack the West, to have funding to attack the West into the United States. We're literally in a covert version. Remember the Cold War? It wasn't a hot war. We were fighting things of sneaky little things all over the place, but wasn't actually nuclear bombs going off. Yet we were in a fight with the Soviet Union. The reality is we're in a type of Cold War right now. And behind the scenes, it's the British banking system, the royalists, the various royal families around the world, predominantly in Europe, and all of their organizations that are right there in plain sight, whose operations appear disconnected, but they're ultimately very connected at high levels. And it's this British imperial system. I think that terminology is the most accurate, trying to bring America back into their rule and orbit. So and remember, just to further, kind of help people, decide if I'm right or not on this. What was the big thing that was part of the reason why Clinton was so important, so uh, um, uh, capable of becoming the president? He's Billy Carter or Jimmy Carter's campaign manager. Billy was the beer boy. Billy Beer. People forget that. Some of the people longer in the tooth in the audience will know what I'm talking about. But Jimmy Carter. I had a point I was going to make there. By the way, Jimmy Carter's mom was a member of CFR, Council of Foreign Relations. His whole entire cabinet were members of Council of Foreign Relations, a Rockefeller operation, coordinating their actions heavily with the globalista, these Eurocentric people that wanted to have a one world government. One of Reagan's campaign things was that we were going to not have the CFR running the country remotely in the cabinet, and that being CFR wasn't the qualification to be on Reagan's cabinet. And so we've been fighting this British operation trying to control America, and Bill Clinton, he went to school as a Rhodes Scholar in England. What's a Rhodes Scholar? Well, Cecil Rhodes wanted to train Americans to help them understand the British system, the British monarchy, and then eventually to bring America back under the reign and rule of the British monarchy, the British system, the British Commonwealth, bring us back into of the British Commonwealth where we had, stepped away. Well, declared our independence. Well, is that a good qualification to be president? That you've gone and become a Rhodes Scholar? Look at all the people going after Trump.
Right. Sure.
Stephen Halper, a professor at Cambridge University, where the setup was done to try and say that Flynn bedded a Russian spy. Halper, who was in the Reagan president, worked in the Reagan White House, and then halfway through becomes a banker and is the secret banker behind the scenes in the testimony that wasn't public, involved in Iran-Contra. And then when it looks like there might be get close to him, he disappears into the woodwork, gets a British passport, and becomes a professor over at Cambridge. Still gets paid by the Department of Defense as a contractor, and all the work he does is bullshit. People have looked at it like, this is gibberish. Yeah, he's getting $500,000 a year. It was just he was on the payroll doing stuff for the Brits. What did he do? He set up Flynn. It was his aide, who I think may be one of the FBI officers that Comey. We have an affidavit from one of the women who was in the room when it happened, another FBI officer. She gave the affidavit to Grassley over at the Senate and said that Comey commissioned two women in 2015 to infiltrate the Trump campaign before Operation, hurricane and all this, the Crossfire Hurricane and all that started, before there was any allegations of Trump, collusion with Russia, sends them into the Trump campaign without any proper basis legally for doing this, and commissions them to honeypot, do whatever they have to get information out of the Trump campaign against Trump. And that's part of the allegations against Comey, but not the stuff he's been charged with yet.
Yeah.
And so Stephen Halper has a gal who's one of his student aides that's a looker, and she tries to bed Papadopoulos. Well, Papadopoulos is a young married guy, and he's got values, he's got morals, he's got one of the most beautiful wives on the planet. And yet they're trying to infiltrate. They figure he's just, like them, and he isn't. And so she doesn't succeed. But that was over in Stephen Halper, who also said that Flynn tried to, or did bed the Russian agent, and so he can't be trusted, and blah, 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 at a conference he set up. The Brits are all over this shit.
Yeah.
Okay? And the collusion between CIA and MI6, FBI and MI5. MI5 is like our FBI. MI6 is like our CIA. One's internal, one's external investigations, for people that don't know. I had a very famous friend who would always call it M16. And one day I said, what is he talking about? I can't understand what he's talking about. I realized, he's reading MI6 and reading it as M16.
Wow.
British M16. I'm like, what in the world? Anyway, so sometimes when it's in print, it throws you off. And it was somebody who would go, how could they be that far off? But they got to know this, but they didn't. So anyway, there's some other connection, the Soros stuff out of MI6, MI5, the Brits, the whole operation connecting with Obama, who pulled the bust out of Churchill, who supposedly is at great odds with him and doesn't like him. It's all theater. It's all a play. And now we see that it is, because he's over there coordinating his actions with them. And what is the backdrop to all of this? Even Brennan the other day, Brennan is the one that created the false history for Obama in more recent times, not all the way back at the beginning, but back at the birth and all that. But in more recent times, Barack Obama supposedly went to Columbia University and got his political science degree there. Well, Michael Medved went to Columbia University. It's a 4-year degree. Michael Medved's a well-known talk show host here in the U.S., long history. He went the exact same 4 years. There was about 23, 25 students in that class. And they all had to work together because they've got to, do their, reports and everything to get their 4-year degrees. So they study together, they share stuff, they all know each other. 4 years at the same university. It's not that big of a place. In that 4 years, never, ever once met or saw Obama. Nobody else did. You pull all the, I never saw him. You meet him? You ever work with him? You ever saw him there? No. And then he supposedly gets this thing over to Harvard and becomes the head of the Harvard Law Review. And the money to go to Harvard comes from a Saudi financier, Al Masood. And uh, it's all bullshit. Well, who puts those secret histories together for people that have to have it for a cover as an asset to CIA? At that time, Brennan was doing that,
Right.
and clearing out, creating false passport information or deleting stuff, etc. That's all Brennan.
Right.
The other day, Brennan had an interview that he did and totally lost it over the 51 people from the intelligence community that said that Hunter Biden laptop was a obvious Russian disinformation plot. Totally had been disproven before he even did that to throw the 2020 election.
Right.
And so there's all this collusion in these areas with the Brits. There's stuff with Brennan, the Brits, and all that. Long and short of it is, they know that something's about to break, and they're getting very, very dicey, sensitive to everything, including the idea that there's going to be arrests. And so they're getting wilder and wilder. Even Obama, is he going to run to Kenya, which was a British protectorate at the time he was born, wasn't even a country yet? Are the Brits going to protect him?
Yeah. Will we see
Go
an
into
arrest here
exile in
soon?
Britain.
Will we see
Huh?
an arrest here soon, Juan?
Well, I think it's becoming more and more obvious by the hour that we're very close to some types of arrests. You've already seen some of the lightweight ones kind of greasing the skids. Bolton, Comey, um, uh, Letitia, the prosecutor up there. There's going to be plenty more, but we're going to move into the more serious Russia stuff. That's the first stuff that'll go. And all these players are tied into the false narrative of, Trump colluding with Russia and trying to overturn the results of the 2016 election and Trump's first term. They interfered in his ability to be president and operate as president. And that's the first arrest. Following would be the stuff related to the 2020 election, the second time around. So that's coming. It's getting very, very
Is it even them, or is this kabuki theater? Is this just to appease the normies out there so that we don't fall into some chaos? Who the hell is running the country right now? Because it's clearly not the elected officials that we see on camera. So what the hell's going on?
Well, wait. Are you contending that Trump isn't running the country and people around him?
No, they are, but the people that are supposedly, in the background, the Democrats who are yelling and screaming. I think this has a lot to do with them shutting down a lot of the programs that have been stealing from the American people. And now that the government's shut down and they're not budging, they're like, hey, we're not even in any hurry to open up the government back, because right now they're basically got carte blanche and able to shut down a lot of these illegal.
Well, let's help people. Let's not say it too wildly. The reality of the matter is that the Democrats, Obama's main thing, his legacy to the world, to America, was the Obama health care plan, which was a wipeout for the way we do business. I remember, we had some great healthcare plans. I had one that was Blue Cross for all my employees that was fantastic. Really, it wasn't cheap, but it was a very good plan. And lots of other people had similar. When Obama went to the Obamacare, they destroyed what was left of the healthcare private system, and it didn't provide what they claimed it would provide. All of the warnings about how it would destroy the healthcare industry and the hospital industry and like that really have turned out to be pretty much exactly what they said. So Trump, is part of what we're doing to try and get the economy under control, is to move away from this socialist Marxist healthcare system, what it's become, and begin laying the groundwork to go back to some kind of better healthcare system. And as part of that, this budget was going to increase the money going to a lot of these failed systems, as well as other mischief that, in a Doge world where we've seen USAID and all sorts of other programs exposed for the waste and abuse and like that, and what's really going on versus what you're told is going on. Stopping cutting that out of the budget. The Democrats said, no, you got to fund all this stuff. You got to do it or we won't sign. So uh, Trump gave a path forward that was pretty good, just didn't allow for the healthcare stuff to continue on the way it was. And the Democrats said no. And so here we are. So um, that's what's being fought over and argued. And Trump says we just can't afford it. We're not going to go forward that way. It's Obamacare versus, something that we can afford because it's going to break the American budget. It is breaking the American budget right now. And that's the standoff. And the Democrats won't back off, including all the wonky funding for DEI for butterflies in Africa or whatever, bullshit things. So, and Trump warned. He's said all the way along his goal was to reduce the federal workforce by 50%. So as you've seen him come into office, a lot of the stuff that he's done has been to pare back and return to states, not the federal government, various authorities and responsibilities.
Right.
When you run money through the federal government, they got to take their 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever, and then they return it to the states. Why not just leave it in the states and let them tax or whatever they're going to do in the first place,
Correct.
instead of running it through an extra filter?
Mm-hmm.
And as Bro said, that great sucking sound.
Yeah. Is the government right now shut down? Is this a real shutdown, or is this staged to basically do a controlled demolition and a restructure of power?
Well, it's a real shutdown, but in the process, it is providing a context where Trump can furlough workers and also, essentially fire workers and begin paring a lot of these operations down. And day one, Trump was doing that. In fact, in the first hour that Trump was president this time around, right off the bat, he fired just shy of 9,000 senior executive service employees, an agency he didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
If they can fire 9,000, how many more are left to keep the company going or the group going? That's the real fight over there. In continuity government, and but lots and lots and lots of other agencies also paring them back, firing people. Even getting rid of people that they just don't want. And
what percentage of this you think has to do with bringing in the new banking system?
Well, the banking stuff is really for the most part, a separate lane. One thing that's not known publicly, widely, certainly was never reported anywhere. On the day that we had the Army do their 250th anniversary there in Washington, D.C., and the parade and all the historic outfits and stuff like that, in that same time frame, you had military personnel in civilian clothes predominantly going into Treasury, and all of the workers in Treasury in the building were invited to leave. And they went through the building, did all sorts of stuff, and then allowed some of the employees to start trickling back in. What exactly, precisely happened to Treasury is not known or public at this point in time, but they certainly did some kind of a house cleaning and rearrangement. And by the way, the most important cabinet position in the cabinet really is the Treasury. As far as power, next to the president themselves, it's arguably on the civilian side the most powerful office of government. The Department of War being, in another similar kind of a very, very powerful position. But the money supply, the banking is crucial. And by the way, when Trump and I've said this to your audience and other audiences, but I want people to keep this in mind. When Trump finished with the Army's 250th anniversary, the big display, and the not publicized cleaning out of Treasury and getting a handle on what's going on over there, he then had these two flags put up on the White House front lawn, like Mount Suribachi, raising the flag, the military putting it up there, conquering the high ground in the swamp. And but then he had security fencing put around the White House. Didn't have it put anywhere else in Washington, D.C. Didn't put it around the Congress. Didn't put it around the Supreme Court, except around Treasury. Didn't do it around the Federal Reserve. Remember, Federal Reserve and Treasury operations are commingled. But the Federal Reserve is not a branch of the U.S. government. It's a private banking organization tied to the international reserve system run out of the City of London and the banks out of London and the resolving of all the accounts in Basel, Switzerland. So that's really a foreign operation on U.S. soil. Trump put security fencing around the Treasury because the war, in many ways, that he's fighting isn't even the overt war with the Department of War, changing the name of Department of Defense, Department of War. It's with the banking and treasury system, the monetary system around the world. So he put security fencing around the U.S. Treasury and the White House and no place else. And then he goes to war with Powell over at the Federal Reserve. He even kicks the board of governors for the Federal Reserve, the bank presidents from across the country that set interest rates and things like that, money supply, how much we're going to print this week. He kicked them out of the offices in D.C. that were U.S. government office building and closes up the building. Go find your own office somewhere. Just to make the point that they're not an official agency of government yet. They've got a building that's their building there in Washington, D.C. Well, Trump shut them down. He's making a point that he's moving our financial operations as a people, as a government, back to Treasury and away from this internationalist, banker-centric system. We're not their tool. We're our own.
Yeah, you do understand that Ripple and XRP is front and center. Okay, you have to be absolutely crazy not to understand that the stage is set for XRP and Ripple. Ripple is now partners with the new structure of the new Treasury and the new Federal Reserve, whatever is going to come of it. I think the entire system.
Well, don't commingle. This is an extremely important distinction. If you say Treasury and Federal Reserve in the same breath, that goes back to the Federal Open Market Committee and all of their operations. We are not going to be living in an illusion as to who's in power as time goes on. Trump is clearly drawing a line in the sand over Treasury certificates or notes, which will be the money moving forward at some point, and the Federal Reserve notes, which are just fiat money. They're backed by nothing.
Yeah, I think we're watching the entire institution crumble, Congress, the media, agencies, all of it. I think it's all collapsing under its own weight. What do you think?
Well, I think I don't want to be too simplistic. Trump, this shutdown, the Democrats forced it. Trump gave a way out, just wasn't going to continue to go down the drain in the Obamacare healthcare system and continue to fund it. And he wasn't going to continue to fund things that Doge and other operations had revealed were BS. He wasn't going to continue to do that. Start cleaning up our affairs within our spending. And so it wasn't going to be business as usual. The Democrats want business as usual, as it's been going all along. And he says, no, not going to happen. So, and Trump, by the way, for just to kind of get into how he presents himself, even to his own people, he'll listen to stuff. He'll, let people explain things. He'll look at the paperwork and all that, but he'll reach a point where he has had it. He doesn't, it's now time for action. And so he will essentially tell people around him, literally, fuck it, I don't even want to listen to that shit anymore. Let's go fix it. Now we're going to fix it. I'm done listening to that crap. It's over. Now we're doing this.
Mhm.
So he'll entertain stuff up to a point, let people, say whatever they want to say, try to convince whatever. And then when the time comes, the cup is full, he's all done with the patty cakes. And he is like flipping a switch, and now we're doing this. And I don't care what anybody says, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do. We're not going to, no more bullshit. Okay.
Right.
Kill the bull. And he will be that decisive. And when he flips in that mode, people around him know, just get out of the way. He tells you want something done, that's what you're doing. And you want to have the conversation still, he's done with the conversation bullshit. This is what we're doing. Get in line. We're moving forward. Done with the bullshit.
Steve Bannon is definitely hinting that there is a clear pathway for Donald Trump to take a third term. Where are you on that?
Well, I think Professor Clement did a pretty good video. He's a lawyer, teaches constitutional law, and has looked at that. He just put out a video the other day on that and kind of dissects the legalities involved in what it would take to allow him to become president again. And I think without wasting too much time going on into the minutia, that half hour to hear what he has to say pretty decisively lays out how could he do it legally and why would or wouldn't he do it. I think it's a bit of trolling personally. The reality is that barring some kind of problem within the way things are developing and stabilizing for the country, that Trump doesn't see the wisdom of him seeking another term, that America will be ready and need new leadership at that point in time. And so he may troll the other guys, everybody, for a period of time, but I don't actually think he'll do that at the end of the day. But anything could happen. So
We cannot have another politician because look, we've gone down this road of politicians running our country for the last 100 years, and look where it's gotten us. We can't do that anymore. That's out of the question. We can a non-politician, another businessman who's very strategic in his moves, etc. We need another Trump, is what we need.
Well, the only thing I would add to it, though, is that, for example, that was the rhetoric when they wanted to run Perot, and Perot was actually beginning to win. But you have to understand the context. Perot he was created by David Rockefeller.
Mhm.
David Rockefeller co-signed the note that allowed him to go in with his company EDS and begin with the early computers, the big mainframes, the IBM 3031, 32, and 33 computers, to begin handling the accounting and payroll for New Jersey and then New York and then other states, and with a $50 million guarantee. No cash actually went anywhere from Rockefeller. He just, signed the guarantee banknote and had a piece of the action. When Bill Clinton was running against George Bush Sr., and they needed to split the conservatives so that Bill could win. David Rockefeller's the one that got Perot into the race. And then Perot dropped out because his daughter was having a wedding, and supposedly it was Bush people that were threatening her and going to disrupt the wedding, and he didn't want to do that. Well, the reality is he dropped out of the race because he was actually getting close to looking like he might win. And the plan wasn't to have him win, it was to have Bill Clinton win. He was just supposed to split the right. In fact, I personally worked with and dealt with the security people for Clinton later, who were there with him from Arkansas as he was running for president. And at a time when you thought, Perot was talking like, Bill Clinton's such a, whatever, that he wouldn't even hire him for a mid-level manager. Okay. Perot's saying that, he's that much of a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. Clinton was being puffed up as, this genius. He's running Jimmy Carter's campaign. He's a a professor of law there at the university, and he's running for his own office as the prosecutor there in one of the counties, or AG, whatever. And so he's like Superman doing all this stuff. It was actually just, he's being helped through this by people in the background because he's a hidden Rockefeller. His real dad is Winthrop Rockefeller, who was governor of Arkansas. His mom was a maid there at the Rockefeller Mansion. And so, he vacations every year with the Rockefeller family there in Colorado, or did up until a few years ago, every summer for years and years and years and years, because he's a Rockefeller. He's right there in plain sight. Doesn't look anything like Blythe, the guy that supposedly was the father that mom went on one date with, and then a few weeks later he died in a single car crash, drowned in a ditch. It was just convenient. He's a guy that died, and they could pin the baby on him, but it was actually Winthrop Rockefeller.
Yeah. Well,
in the war. So, well, the reason I say all that is because as you get into the businessman side of it, America was conned once before because of this whole businessman thing. You say we need another businessman like Trump. The monsters had conned us with Perot. When Perot dropped out of the race, was out of it, there was a certain point where he had to get back in the race. So I have a friend who's now passed, but was there present when it happened. Perot's head of security got a call from David Rockefeller's head of security and said, there's a plane going to be on the tarmac there at Dallas in the morning, 6 a.m. Please have Mr. Perot on the plane. Mr. Rockefeller wants to see him here at the house. And of course, the Rockefeller Center of Operations in the U.S. is Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's where they have their, core of operations. Huge estate there. They have their own runway in front of the house. Roe was over with one of his girlfriends at the time. And so his head of security gets him on the plane. He didn't want to go. He goes out, gets to the Rockefeller place, goes into the outside waiting room area and has to wait an hour and 15 minutes after he gets there to see David, make sure he knows who's in charge here. Come here, sit down. I'll see you when I'm ready. Rockefeller comes out, Perot goes in, meets with him for just about an hour, comes out, actually physically was, pale and had to be helped on the plane, has a scotch or two on the plane, tells his head of security to have his press agent set up a meeting as soon as he gets back to Dallas, and tells the press when he lands at Dallas that he'd met with his friend David Rockefeller and they'd counseled about the state of the nation and blah, 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 and that he decided to get back in the race. Well, he got read in. He didn't want to get in the race. He was done. He gets read in. You will be in the race, and you will continue to coordinate your communications with the Clinton team so that you're aiming at Bush, not at Clinton, so that Clinton gets elected. And he goes ahead and does that. And so Perot stole or moved the majority of the votes that went and voted for him from Bush, not from Clinton. And that it split the right. As a businessman, running for president, got to fix this country. Big sucking sound. And the rest is history. We got Clinton.
Right.
And the reason I say all that is because in this game, we were fortunate. We got Trump. Trump says he was invited by 200 generals to run, and that it wasn't just him all by himself, or was his support to get this whole thing going. It was 200 generals. He said that. He's been very clear about that. Would we be able to duplicate that again with another person? Probably isn't the right time, and you don't want the sense of a coup. What moniker you put on them, politician, businessman, whatever. I think we have to have somebody that is altruistic and focused on the citizenry, as opposed to the politics or the military or even the money. It's why the America First, Make America Great Again, is so important. We have to get our own house in order. So we need somebody that won't be sucked into the globalist perspective easily
Right.
or diverted.
Let me ask you the question point blank. If 107 could have his cake and eat it too, who would be the president in 2028?
I don't think we know. I don't know. And the
You don't
reason
have a favorite person in mind?
you know what? Here's why I don't. So many of the people that are maybe on the roster somehow uh, have so many things where they appear to be divided or not strong or easily controlled by somebody. I don't know if we've actually seen clearly any of those possibilities emerge in anything close to a decisive way. And remember, we still have, over 3 years, but before the campaign gets going, we got 2 solid years anyway. That even if people are, trying to make known their intentions and desires and all that, there's a lot to come out that will force you to have to reconsider what you think about so many of the players. And I have a person that I really like as a primary and a couple of others that are secondary, but there's still proof in the pudding that needs to be done. And so I wouldn't want to damage that person by saying that name, because then it would put undue pressure while they're still completing what they're doing right now. And it's not Vance, it's somebody else. But there's several people that we have a lot that's got to happen. And, in the heat of the moment, in the fires that are still ahead, we still have a near-death experience for America ahead. We have great confrontation still ahead. There's a lot of drama that has to happen as we go through the arrests, as we go through the disclosures of what actually occurred back in 2015 and 16, and then during the midterms and in 2020 and since. So I don't think we have all the information yet. And I think America, even a year from now, let alone 2 and 3 years from now, we're going to have a different appetite than we have right now. When you change your diet, after a while, you become more sensitive. If reduce the salt, you're more sensitive to salt. If you reduce the sugars, you become more sensitive to sugars and other things. It changes your appetite as you get older. Things that were really important to you 10, 15, 20, 40 years earlier kind of fall to the wayside. And America is going to be much different, more mature, seasoned. Think of it this way. Guys that go into battle in war. I knew a guy that went to Vietnam. I know what he was like when he left. And I'd known him for a few years, older guy. And I knew what he was like when he came back. He was a completely different person. He stands out in my mind just thinking about it, because we just talked the other day, suffering from, and I talked to somebody else last night, both of them having the effects of Agent Orange in their system from all that ways back. But you come back with a different, glasses you see through. With what we're about to go through, as much as you think, so many things have happened. Look, I mean, I went down the list. It's like the Billy Joel song, "We Didn't Light the Fire." When you start stacking all the things that have happened to us in the last, 30 years, Oklahoma City, 9/11, the crash in 2007-8 within the banking system, things that were smaller that almost took us out, attempted nuke that nobody knows about in Seattle on November 3rd, a year before the 16 election or the 2020 election, November 3rd, 2019. The attempt to spread a biological and then a radiological down in LA in January that year, with the helicopters landing on the street in LA, saying, people saying it was a military exercise, one of the most densely packed, busiest streets in the world, and you all of a sudden closed off for a military operation with no warning in a downtown area, and start landing helicopters and pulling out stuff in with nest teams and nest bags
I remember
with
that.
stuff inside the bags. Okay, people have no concept of how close we have come on numerous things that were planned against us. Nancy Pelosi, just a few days earlier in the last budget crisis, think about this. She was going to take 93 members of her family on 2 Air Force jets, and they were flying to the other side of the world to go see the troops in Afghanistan and, go down to, Egypt and see the pyramids and all that. She was going to be on the other side of the world.
Makes no sense.
She was going to be on the other side of the world with all of her family when a great outbreak before the one that we just had was going to happen. That you're on YouTube, so I don't even say the name, but I feel like we can't even say the name of something that shut the country down for a couple of years. But they had it planned, the first phase, 2 years earlier. Think about that, and then Plan B is the one that you got. They were going to get people spooked up enough that you were preconditioned, and they didn't get that. Okay,
it sounds like she was trying to flee with her whole family, based on what you're telling me.
Of course she was. Of course she was. She's going to be on the other side of the world when the outbreak happened, and then not bring him back. And then supposedly Trump would get hit, and his family and all that. DC, she'd come back and rule and reign from Denver, from the city under the airport, right? So there's so many things going on here. The whole senior executive service operation, challenging the military operation out of NORAD for continuity in government that's still going on today. The fight's as hot as it's ever been right now, and people don't even have a knowledge of it in the public side. The raid at Mar-a-Lago for the looking for the biscuit, the key code for the nukes. Trump himself has acknowledged that that's what they're looking for was the codes. Did that last summer. I've talked about that before. There's so many things that are occurring, have occurred. And there's so much more to go yet with this near-death experience, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Trump just the other day announced that we're going to, since India and everybody else is out there, China's, testing their nuclear weapons. Well, we're going to start testing our weapons again. We're going to match what everybody else is doing. And so you think that the standoff is over? No, it's still coming. Yeah. We're coming up on a Cuban Missile Crisis. Lavrov literally quoted me before the Ukraine war and said, we're going to have a Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, I've been saying that for years before that, over and over. And the foreign minister out of Russia says the same thing. We're on the brink of another Cuban Missile Crisis. We are coming to that still. And so in that context, in the fires that are yet ahead, as hot as they are, they're going to get a lot hotter. We won't truly see who the people are that we can trust completely. And it might surprise you who we can't and can in the heat that's yet to come. And so I don't know that we know who is the right person when the time comes to replace Trump.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe when you and I are in person, one thing that you and I...
I'm not telling anybody. I do not want to damage that person.
We have several things in common.
Great stuff. I'm not telling anybody.
Yeah, we have several things in common. And one of them is we both have a pretty big fat stomach, and it's not just food in there. There's a lot of secrets in there. Okay. And I believe...
Well, if you talk to Jen, parasite.
I've been known to hold a few secrets, but DeSantis, for example, he's a skull and bones. I know for a fact he's going to throw his hat into the ring in 2028.
He's a Bush baby. I'm not voting for him ever.
He's doing everything great in Florida. I'm going to tell you.
He's doing things. Look, let me just say this.
Yeah.
He's done even before he tried to come against Trump different times earlier on and talk about running and stuff like that, he's been a pretty on point for Florida. So I'm not going to throw any stones. There is things that even on the vote stuff, he made this vote integrity section and all that, but he didn't do anything for Tim Canova, who was battling Debbie Wasserman Schultz, where they'd proven, uh, uh, fraud
Right.
in that position. And I'm trying to be careful because of YouTube, but they literally got ballots on the back seat of the rental car of one of the key people, and and they let them destroy 50,000 ballots that that proved that Tim won his race, and yet we still got Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was protecting Hillary Clinton to be the nominee back in 2016. He did nothing to go and do anything on that. So the help is there to get everybody to go along and agree to everything. When it comes to the real issues, that remember, Trump is going to his goal as president in public life. His goal here, before he leaves office, is to leave America with two primary things: an honest vote, honest elections, and honest money. Real money that's constitutional, that's backed by metals, gold and silver. Nothing.
Health also.
Well, but again, his primary two things: if you have honest elections and honest money, the other stuff starts to fall into place. And you could name everything. You can name the military, health, science,
the chemtrails, all of this stuff, right?
The technology that's a threat to us. But if you allow the American people to actually have pretty good sense, if you allow them to get people that are actually their representatives into office and to control who's actually going to be running things that represents the American people and their values, you got a pretty good chance of getting it right. And when you get these people that are selected for us and foisted upon us the way that it's been happening, you get the mischief that's been what's happening for the last 100 years.
It looks like also, and I don't want to jump around here too much, but it looks like we're getting ready to go in Venezuela. I mean, the writing
getting ready. We're there, but yes, going in more demonstrably. We got 10,000 troops ready to go into Caracas and manage that while we go in. We've got everything ready. Think shock and awe at a smaller level, but locally on their military bases where they've been protecting a lot of the crowd, including the Cubans and Russians and everybody else, the Chinese. If they're gonna manufacture drugs and ship them off to come to America, we're going to destroy those drugs. We're not going to do it on the boat. We're going to do it in the lab.
Right.
And so enjoy the show. Like, we don't know where this stuff's at, and we have a pretty good idea where Maduro's at. He wants to play patty cakes and like that. We're going to up the game, and there's no use going in haphazard. There's no use throwing any personnel in there for the time being. You can start out with, we'll go start dismantling their war machine. They want to threaten us. Okay, well, we're America. Let's see how Venezuela does against us. And by the way, the origins of the vote fraud that was orchestrated using three-letter agencies, our FBI, our CIA, in collusion with MI6, MI5, Cuban intelligence. Cuba was really running Venezuela for decades and decades and decades. And then you've got Russia in there. But that's where the collusion happened with Smartmatic vote machines and vote systems. By the way, LA County has their own private voting system. They are the only one in the country the only county, but the largest county in the country, that has its own electronic voting machine system. but it's based on Smartmatic. Okay. Smartmatic is the one that we have all of the cases now here in U.S. courts where they overthrew the Philippines government and were paying people off and other countries around the world using the Smartmatic system. Well, that's what LA County has. How do you think you get, Cuba's running Venezuela. How do you get a person as the mayor of LA who in her vacation days goes to Cuba to listen to the fearless leader Fidel Castro give his 5-hour Franken speech over and over? Okay, that's the person that's running LA, a person that idolizes a Marxist, Fidel Castro. Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's who's the mayor of LA. Well, how did they get there? Well, Smartmatic. Enjoy the show. It's going to get epic here shortly. And where was she, by the way? Where was she on the day that the California fires happened? She was down in South Africa, where, of course, I was here just a while back. She was at a game preserve in South Africa, meeting with 17 attorney generals from states around the country, plus other politicians, other agency personnel, health and human services and things like that, where they were plotting how to take back control and push Trump out of office. They were down there the day the fires started at the tail end of the Biden administration. As I landed in LA, there was Biden's aircraft there at LAX, and we landed opposite direction from our normal landing, landing from west to east, coming in over the water because of the artificial Santa Ana out of season that was being caused by weather manipulation coming from our country's most secret base, Area 51, where they were spraying silver oxide over the western side of the test range. We have satellite imagery of it. It's not hidden. We know exactly what was going on there. You can see exactly what's going on. And then they're pushing that material across into the LA basin and dropping it out of the air with pretty exacting precision. And it dries out the plant life and all sorts of stuff, makes it easier to catch fire and like that. So, and burn hotter.
You don't see Venezuela being long drawn out, number one. And do you think that we're going to take the oil? Is Donald Trump going to follow his own advice? When we went into Iraq, we didn't take the oil. Will we take the oil this time when we go into Venezuela? And part two to that question, once things start to normalize in Venezuela, is their currency going to normalize as well?
Well, they won't be able to run their own currency for the time being. The oil, Venezuela is the richest country practically on the planet in oil. They're richer than Saudi Arabia. That's why it's so horrid that they're so destitute right this second with the Marxist government and like that, the Cubans and all that in there. In fact, their main oil field is called the Rockefeller field. So they're a very, very...
If you have that much oil, what's to stop China and Russia to say, wait a minute, you're not going in there alone. We're going to defend Venezuela.
Well, in fact, Russia did a deal to refurbish a couple of years back one of the huge oil fields in Venezuela. For a period of time back during the early part of the Biden administration, they were flying their Tu-188 supersonic bomber over to Venezuela once a week and, show a force, show a power alignment, things like that. So they've been in there, but the reality is that Trump's waving them all off, giving them a chance to get out of the way because we're going to go in there and stop this threat into the U.S. We have Maduro has a bounty on his head that was put in place at the U.S. Justice Department. No, $50 million. Yeah. 50 million, the largest bounty ever in history from the U.S. government. And then the next one in line is Ramaphosa in South Africa. He's the one that came over with his delegation, was in the Oval Office. And President Trump pantsed him right there in front of the world on the murdering of the white farmers in South Africa, as though he acts like he didn't know what it was about. His aides are all, we don't know what there's people being killed here. Wow, I'm so shocked. Well, he has since Trump has since referred Ramaphosa to the Justice Department, investigating, looking at his funding of terrorism. His government's been aligning, their Marxists has been aligning with Iran, done military exercises with Iran off the coast of South Africa. Famously, when I was there just a little while ago, one of their generals out of South Africa shows up in Iran, and they're coordinating their activities with Iran.
Right.
And by the way, just so you know, to remind people, South Africa had enough nuclear material for 5 bombs back when the Marxists began to take power there. So, they're not lightweights in their own facilities and like that. Anything gets coordinated between South Africa and Iran at this time, danger, 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 Will Robinson.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Trump. What are some of the strategic moves being positioned right now that the public doesn't really understand, and when they'll look back in hindsight?
Well, in order to complete the 2 most important things that Trump wants to do, you can't just, talk elections. You have to actually do something with it. And as we know, for example, with the Tina Peters case, the federal ability to intercede in state functions and activities is very limited due to the way our Constitution sets up states' rights. How they run elections, their voter rolls, what method they use, machines and paper and contractors and everything else, is up to the states. However, in a matter where there's national security at risk, the whole country on the line, the president can change hats from the police chief, which is internal, to the commander in chief. And what we know now, and he's very clear, we have it all. We have the guys in U.S. protective custody who did the mechanical side, the computer communications side of the fix of the 2020 election. We also have the information concerning the fake ballots that were printed in China that were moved over here and put into the election system as needed, primarily through the mail and the drop boxes. And so we have all of that, and we have the people that did it, that engineered it, in protective U.S. custody. Tulsi Gabbard famously said in one of the cabinet meetings 6 months ago, Mr. President, we now have proof of a stolen election. We now know that the only way forward is we're going to have to use hand count paper ballot, just like you said, Mr. President. So the president has told his cabinet where he's going, hand count paper ballot. He told the country a few days ago, about 2 weeks ago now, when he was in a press conference concerning Ukraine, and a reporter asked him a question. He says, well, it's not really on the subject, it's not part of what this press conference is for, but since you ask, I'm just going to tell you that I'm days away from signing. I'm not considering signing. He didn't say he's considering signing. He said, I'm days away from signing an executive order concerning paper ballots, that we're going to go to a hand count paper ballot, no machines. He told this to the whole entire world. Now, he also, the executive order that he says he's getting ready to sign, behind the scenes, that's, we understand that it's predominantly an executive order based on work that a team that I put together last January, the day after he was sworn into office, wrote up a proposed version of the executive order on this, and very, sophisticated, advanced, precise executive order, 17 pages. It's been published. It's out there. We've put it out to the world. And we understand from the legal team around Trump that it's pretty close to what we had proposed, maybe 80 or 90%, we'll see. But that executive order, as we presented it, and as we understand Trump is going to sign, it mandates first of all, before the executive order is signed, that the president must first declare a national emergency. And the reason for that is regarding elections. The reason for that is that without a national emergency regarding elections, he couldn't control the state's operations concerning elections. So he has to exercise commander-in-chief authority in the context of a national emergency, something that threatens the nation as a whole. And then he can go into the state's operations, how they conduct their elections. He can go in and mandate, and it's the first thing within the executive order, we have to get control of the voter rolls. And so the existing voter rolls are so corrupted, so false, that you can't, with any assurity in any timely way, go in there and clean them out one at a time. You just got to start a clean slate, and everybody's going to have to re-register to vote with government-issued ID, sign on the dotted line under penalty of perjury that they're who they say they are, have the right to vote in that district, blah, blah, blah. This is their residence. And so clean voter roll. Then everything else can happen on top of that. One day vote, not month long. And no machines, zero machines. Within that context, at the same time, I asked for group to put together a proposed version of the executive order that would go to a hand count paper ballot. I asked another group to look at the system the way it is right now. And I asked several questions. First off, answer this question: can the existing system be used in its aggregate across the country with the machines and systems in the country right now, and be trusted to provide an honest, fair vote in 2026? Of course, the answer is no. We know it's corrupted. It's got all sorts of people in the voter rolls that aren't supposed to be there, and you got these centralized counting centers, this multi-vote or multi-count or multi-day election system that gives all sorts of room for people to control the algorithms and blah blah blah. So the existing system is broken beyond repair. But the second question is, can the system be repaired? Is there machines? Is there technology out there that can be augmented into the current system, woven into it, to replace some of the things that are vulnerable and or
Blockchain.
add to them? No, blockchain does not work. Not a non-starter. I'm just telling you, and they cover that.
Have to agree.
Nope, it's a non-starter. I can tell you right now, it's a non-starter, and we're not using any machines, no blockchain, non-starter. And that was part of what was supposed to be answered within this technical paper. It is actually. The third thing is there a vote system, like you said, the blockchain and other things that could be used and implemented, trained, certified, in place in time for the 2026 election? No, there isn't one. So what's the way forward? The only way forward is to do a hand count paper ballot for 2026 and most likely for 2028 within the context of a national emergency. Now, if people want to bring in some of the other technologies, I can tell you that we've looked at everything, including blockchain. And there's vulnerabilities that the people in the blockchain world aren't understanding within the advanced computer systems that already exist, let alone what's coming and the AI. So no, it is not. It is vulnerable. Anything electronic. So Trump, and this was part of the thing. And this was the reason I raised that. This group, which had all the right credentials, presented one machine addition to the hand count paper ballot that they felt would be useful to speed the count. And Trump liked most of the report, but when they got to that, adding a machine in, it was a non-starter. Pissed him off because it looked opportunistic. That was the exact word that was used. And they didn't understand where we're going. We're not going to use any machines. France does it, no machines. India does it, no machines. And they have the count by the end of the evening. You don't need the machines. We did it for a long time. It's a ruse. It's a ploy to convince people you have to have the machines. You do it with smaller precincts, 1,500 or less, and it's you don't have volunteers that have to stop their job for a month. It's a 1 day. You do a little training, you come in, it's all done in the open. No ballots transported in the trunks of police cars, the fire engine, grandma's knitting basket to some central vote center 300 miles away where all the mischief can happen behind, closed off windows and doors and all that bullshit. Counted where cast. No ballots get moved at all right there in the open. That's what Trump's going to do. And he's going to order that. He told the world, listen to me, a couple of weeks ago, he told the world, I'm about to sign an executive order concerning hand count paper ballots. No, zero mail-ins, with extremely rare exceptions heavily documented where people are medically closed in or military. No mail-in ballot, no drop boxes with Zuckerberg and his DOD friends. Okay, not happening. Zuckerberg's a creation of DARPA.
Yes, we know that.
Okay, so the long and
By the way,
short
thank
of it,
you for your your contribution to the movie, dear Mr. President. How did you like yourself speaking in Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese and Japanese, French, Italian, Spanish? I mean, was that amazing or what?
Well, it's pretty amazing. What's really amazing is these little earbuds where you can talk with somebody and it instantly translates
seconds.
what they're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even seconds. I mean, it's
less than seconds.
instantaneous. Yeah, and you hear them. It's like a movie that's out of sync with the translator, right, with their lips. But you're watching their lips go, but you're hearing it.
Yeah, but I live down here in Cape Canaveral, Merritt Island. Well, Cape Canaveral is where I have my center. I wish you would have told me that you were in Titusville, but I'm sure you're there on some kind of business. Maybe one day.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm so many places. I never even do a break. I was all over the East Coast. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And I never had a chance to do a single broadcast because I was down in Miami. I was up at Mar-a-Lago. I was up at Titusville and Winter Park, where I used to have a office, and then up to South Carolina and Washington D.C., and then up to Massachusetts, and then I had to go west.
Yeah,
and that was all just in a couple of days. But that was a busy week.
This area here is the area that the Donald Trump is proposing what's called the Golden Dome. I'm sure you know about it. Do you have anything to do with the Golden Dome, Juan?
No, I don't have anything to do with it. I'm aware of it, but right now people don't even realize this. If there was a launch, in fact, there's a Netflix special that just came out the other, a presentation, whatever, the Dynamite House or whatever, and about America being fired upon from a missile launch out in the northern Pacific. They don't know if it's from land or sea, but it was detected once it was in flight. So the satellites missed it. They look for flame fronts supposedly and all that. Well, it's pretty hard for them to miss it, but it could happen. But this missile's inbound, and then one of our seaborne radar detection systems finds it traveling towards America. At first, they thought it was just a test by the South Koreans or the North Koreans, but then it arcs over and flattens out. The trajectory is flattening, which means it's moving across the globe, suborbital, to come back in, and they finally decide it's going to Chicago, which you may remember. I think it's in some of our broadcasts. I've said number of times that after they failed in Seattle in 2019, that the next target that has been telegraphed repeatedly is Chicago for a nuclear strike, nuclear detonation. Sum of all fears. Do they bring it here in a boxcar, or do they a truck, or do they bring it intercontinental ballistic missile? And say it was something else. But anyway, that's out there to get people thinking. Think of the timing with what I've told you. It's going to come down to a standoff over nuclear, literally sum of all fears type thing, or Cuban Missile Crisis, as I describe it. And a standoff. And so here you're being, think of the Obamas when they were the executive producers on this special about civil war in America and America deteriorating into a civil war. In their wet dreams, they want America to go to civil war. But then this nuclear threat and like that, they continue on certain themes because they need us in fear to then, in a 9/11-ish type response, allow them to take total control of America within their systems, within divide and conquer type mentality. And so with that in mind, we're in this kind of a moment. A Golden Dome, beautiful, wonderful, outstanding. How many missiles does it take to protect you from incoming missiles? Well, right now, to handle intercontinental ballistic missiles, we have 42 ground-based interceptors. That's how many we have. The Russians have thousands of missiles. You got 42 interceptors. Which ones do you intercept? And see, when they're still in that coast phase headed to the target, they haven't done what we call a MIRV. They haven't gone into multiple independent warheads. If you can't intercept them there and they split up, now you have to have multiple interceptors for each one of the separate warheads. And they, in the older technology, you could anticipate where they're going to be at and shoot a bullet at a bullet. But that's actually not the greatest threat today. Today, the greater threat is these hypersonic missiles. The stuff that goes out to the edge of the atmosphere is traveling at Mach, it's out there like 14,000 miles per hour, just below the escape velocity. The hypersonic missiles are there because of, like, for example, why is all the spraying going on around the country? That's part of the SDI system to be able to protect us, put a shield up from incoming nuclear warheads that are coming in from space and to break them up before they get down to lower altitudes. But they've gone to hypersonic missiles, which are steerable. And these hypersonic missiles, which are moving slower, Mach 10 to 12 at the edge of space in very thin atomic oxygen atmosphere, they can steer. And if you send up an interceptor, a bullet to hit a bullet, they can change course and you can't hit them. It becomes almost impossible to hit them. You can do it with lasers, and we have some systems coming online now, and that's the part that is not really public. And so the question is our laser systems deployed on the particular aircraft that we have them on capable of handling the volume of missiles that Russia could send over? And part of that technology, the Israelis have their Golden Dome, and the question is, how come Iran can't get missiles through there for the most part? It's because there's been a particular vehicle that's been used with laser capability to take out a lot of those missiles, the majority of them, and in rare exceptions where they were.
But why do you think this area is so important that they need to put a Golden Dome in Brevard County, Titusville, Melbourne, Merritt Island, etc.?
Well, because that's, again, that's where Southcom is. You've got that does all of our work into South America and even over into the Pacific, a lot of our work there. It's a key location for so many things. Right. And, if you got stuff coming in, it wouldn't be the only place. I mean, you'd continue to have the stuff from Alaska and other places for stuff coming in over the North Pole, Arctic regions. But you still have to have stuff that covers coming in from sea-based threats out there in the Atlantic and like that.
Is there a retirement in the cards for 107 anytime in the near future?
Let me send this call to outer space here 1 second. My chief of staff is calling.
Is that Matt?
Yeah. So we'll find out what he wants to tell me here in a minute. Yeah. But, I can tell you, a few weeks back, I had to clear out one of my hangars for stuff and move cars around and stuff, and I make space for something. And it was so, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to keep the mice down, so I got to put stuff out to make sure no mice get loose in there. And uh, I've got a few of those garages, and I love my cars. I used to go to
You're a
car
car
shows
guy.
pretty
Yeah.
regularly. Yeah,
Yeah, you're a car guy.
the last car show that I was at was in March of 2022 at Mar-a-Lago, and but that was the last one I've gotten to be at for a long time. And before that, I think it'd been 3 or 4 years before that, just because we're just there's so much at stake, so much going on, and I would love to just go work on my own cars, have fun, take the boat out, do something. But for the moment, I don't personally feel the release to be able to do that. There's so much at stake, and it's the next generation and generations. I do get to enjoy a day or two here or there. I'm over in Hawaii right now. It's a nice sunny day. I've got stuff going on. Jen's working on business stuff all day today. So we stay pretty busy, but it's within the context of the moment. I don't think that any of us look. I have a lot of respect for those people working for no gain at all, just to save America. Whole group of people out there in Utah with this RICO action into the politics going on in Utah, and what happened with I got to be careful because where we're at, but a stolen something or other that they're fighting a RICO case there, the Tracy Halverson stuff, in federal court right now. Everybody should join that. In fact, you should have her on an interviewer this week. But huge case, the stuff going on in Oregon where they've actually gotten a quo warranto to the U.S. Supreme Court, where they had challenged several officials in Oregon, are you even in office legitimately, legally? And didn't get an answer. They just got brushed aside. That just got on the docket over at the Supreme Court about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Thousands of hours of work each by multiple people to make those things happen. No pay, no real reward. Even if they win, it's for the next elections, the next generation. Same thing over here in Hawaii. They just had a hearing in the elections board here in Hawaii on Wednesday, and established beyond any question that there was no way to account for 19,000 votes that came in through Hawaii County, here right where I'm at in Kona. 19,000 votes that were logged in as mail-in ballots, yet the mail system can't account for one of them. Every piece of mail is photographed, and the mail system has no record of 19,000 ballots that supposedly came from the mail system to elect a governor and other positions around the state. We have actions like that all across the country where people have put in, unbelievable hours. They could be out relaxing, doing stuff with their kids, hanging out, just having a good old day, and let the racketeers, the powers that be, the Capones, run the country, run the world. But they're not doing that. And so when the other people around me decide they need to take a break, then I probably take a break. But I don't think that it is appropriate to throttle back at this moment in time. And I will tell you this, all my life, I remember the guys that are no longer here when I was very young talking about the situation and saying, it's going to be up to your generation to fix this. We won't be able to get there. There's too much. It's too big. But you have to work towards it. You're going to have to own this and fix it. It'll be your generation. Well, here I am.
Yeah.
And all that time to get to this moment in time, we are at this hyper elevated moment. All the chicanery, all the monsters are so clear now. It's come to a head. Um, yeah, if we don't do it now, if we don't get this under control now, how many generations will it be before there's another opportunity to recapture the direction of the planet, let alone the country? Um, there's a great weight there that I think it is a calling from God Himself, and those that decide to take up the plow and do it. You can't, when God tells you to do something, you can't ignore it. You can't
Ain't
stop.
that the truth?
And so we have lots of people who have engaged, including Trump himself. Look at the example, he works seemingly tirelessly, but the reality is behind the scenes, he gets tired just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Okay. He wants to spend time with his grandkids.
Yeah.
He goes out and golfs. What's he doing when he's golfing? He's getting a little exercise, and he's got people he's doing private meetings with. Come on, go golfing with me. Let's talk. He's
Yeah.
not just
Exactly.
golfing. Hello?
So
Come on,
even
man.
though you want to retire, you can't retire because we're in the middle of the most important dance for Mother Earth. I get it. Okay.
Well, and let me just say this, but actually, sometime this war will be over. This is what I was born for.
Yeah. Well, let's say
I'm there. I'm doing what I'm doing because it's what I'm supposed to do is my attitude. And I've had unique opportunities to get to be in the fight at this place, this time. It's a gift from God. I'm not, anxious to retire. I have stuff I want to do with my space systems and other stuff that I want to put my time and energy into and other projects, but it just isn't appropriate right now.
totally.
And I don't even want to talk that way because we aren't even done. I hope I make it through this with everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, providing we do make it through and we come out the other side smelling like roses, my friend, and I might not be in the business. You might be calling me 5 years from now, say, hey, you remember me? 107 here. I'll buy you a ticket to your favorite car show. I'll bring my crew and I'll come out of retirement and do the last interview once your clearance is clear, no longer in play and your non-disclosure agreement is no longer in play. And I'm going to ask you,
That'll never happen.
role.
Yeah,
What was your role in this whole thing?
My role's the same as so many of these other people. We're try to help the people around us to see more clearly what's been done against us, and figure out how best to address it and get things back on the path that God intended us on in the first place, and stop the monsters from doing things that they want to do to destroy the world and